this morning is Wattpad writer and star, the fabulous Fallon Demornay. Fallon is a YA fantasy and adult contemporary author known for writing powerful girls smashing the patriarchy. Through Wattpad, Fallon has worked with H&M, Pandora, and Warner Brothers. She was a top 10 finalist in Harlequins So You Think You Can Write contest and has been featured in Cosmopolitan's online magazine. She's affectionately referred to as Wonder Woman by her own real-life sisterhood and can be found tearing up the dance floor to salsa or bachata when she's not writing. Fallon lives in Toronto, Ontario, and actually she's right over there. I
know. It's like if I go to my front door, I think I could probably see you wave from the balcony or something.
Yeah, this one of the things about being in Toronto. You never really know how close people are to you. So,
it's like forget 6 degrees of separation. It's more like 2.
Well, within the Wattpad world, it's a lot closer than people think.
Yeah. I remember when I joined Wattpad, I'd been on the platform for about, I think, 2 years before I realized that they were actually situated in Toronto. And I had found out only because I went to a writing conference in New York, my very first conference ever. And I was on maternity leave with my son. So I brought my kids, my ex-husband, who was my husband at the time, and I'm still nursing. And I'm at this conference and I'm going to all these panels and running to the room to nurse my son and back to another panel. And I was all over Twitter, like just, tweeting little tidbits from all the panels that I was attending. And somebody from Wattpad actually saw me blowing up the feed and they're like, we want to meet you. Come to the bar. We'll buy you a drink. And I didn't realize she was from Wattpad. I just thought, oh, fantastic opportunity. Meet another writer. Like, this is why I came out here. And we're having this fabulous conversation. And, at the end of it, she's like, oh, I work for Wattpad, right? And I was like, no, because then I wouldn't have used the F-bomb a few times. But that's how I really became immersed with HQ and then realizing that, oh, you guys are Toronto based and oh, okay. And then the doors just kind of started to kick open from there.
Well, one thing I've learned about you is that you are very you put yourself out there and you're a very genuine person in your interactions. So F-bombs, they will happen, right?
I mean, I was still very professional because at the end of the day, I knew I was meeting, somebody that I wanted to get to know better. But I just thought, oh, you're another writer. Like, we're having a glass of wine at the bar. It could be a little bit more, off the cuff. But then she said Wattpad. I was like, oh, no.
So how soon after that did you find out that Wattpad is based in Toronto?
Well, that was during the conference, because then she started telling me how long she'd been with the company for. And then, she's like, yeah, so head office being in Toronto. I was like, whoa. Toronto? I thought you guys were an American. And I don't know why it never occurred to me to never look into Wattpad. I guess it's just because you don't really hear about things like that really starting in Canada. It's always very American based because that's where the big 5 publishers live, is in New York, right? So I guess I just assumed, oh, if something like this is happening, it's got to be American. Canadians don't invest in talent. We don't cultivate talent. We push them overseas, and then we want them once they're successful.
Well, I guess it must have been exciting because I know when I found out Wattpad was here, I was like, yes, I have to meet them, and just being able to go down there and interact with the staff has always been a really good experience.
Yeah, they're amazing down there, and the headquarters itself is such a beautiful space, such a fun, creative space. It really feels like the kind of hub that you would expect for writers, even though it's a tech side of it, because they handle the logistics of running the platform and cultivating the talent rather than actually creating content. But it still has that very creative, fun, hipster, it's all exposed brick and bright colors and just a really fun, dynamic workspace.
Yeah, I guess since you went to the New York conference, you missed the Whatcom in Toronto the year before.
No, I went to the Whatcom in Toronto. So when I went to New York, it was actually quite some time ago. It would have been 2015.
Oh.
When I went, yeah. So it was quite because it's when I had my son. So I went the very first actual Whatcom they had. They actually hosted it in New York as well. The second one was in Toronto.
Okay, guess I have to brush up on my Wattpad history. Okay, there's a little egg all like this there.
No, no.
Okay, so well, well, you know I was just commenting on that because they still up to last September they still had some of the decorations from the 2018 WhatCon hang out
Yeah,
there.
that was yeah, it was a fun day there because they did like host it at the headquarters itself. So for a lot of people, it was a great experience to be able to not only meet each other, but to actually experience headquarters and the team that work there. Like there's some people that I've known now who are at headquarters. It's been well around 6 years, and they're always like an amazing bunch of people.
Okay, well, I think a lot of people don't really they get into the shyness so much that they don't take the opportunity to get out
Mhm.
and meet other writers, realize how crucial it is to know people who really get you on that same level.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's ultimately what kind of pushed me towards Wattpad as well. I've been writing since I was 11, and it's always been a very introverted, kind of closeted thing that I kept for myself because when I first started, I just did it because it felt natural to me, and once I tapped into it, it was like this is what I'm meant to do. This is like me. And then the voices in my head would never shut up, so I was just constantly writing, but it was always something that I did for myself. And it wasn't until like my mid 20s where I thought, you know what, screw what everybody says about, being a writer is not a real job and you need a real like focus and, yada yada. I thought, you know what, I can make this my career if I want it to be. So now I had to change my perspective and my approach. But one of the things that I did when I was younger is there was an online community that I did become a part of, and that was like the closest I ever got to putting myself out there. But it was easy because being introverted and online, you had that separation of a computer screen, so you didn't feel quite so anxious. It was easier to have like that kind of separation from like, oh my God, people are reading my stuff versus actually standing in front of someone. So it was a really good way to kind of like cut my teeth there. But then after I had my son, I was like, you know what? I'm really craving community again. And I kind of missed that online forum that I had found. And I was like, well, it's been so long because I was like early teens when I found that. So I'm like, they got to have something new and better. So that's when I hit my best friend Google. Wattpad came up, and I was like, oh, okay, here we go. I can get into this again. But the conference was me really trying to level up my craft because I'd spent so many years writing for myself, and now my focus was I want to take it to a more professional level. Well, what better way than getting out there and attending panels and attending conferences and learning the craft from the people who've been doing this for a very, very long time, which is why I was like, okay, I'm on mat leave. This is the best opportunity for me to travel. It just means I got to bring everyone in tow as a mom, and then just frantic bouncing between panels in my hotel room, trying to keep up with my son, and then wanting to soak in as much of this experience as possible. And I will forever advocate to people, if you really are serious about your craft, go to these conferences. Now they're virtual, so it's so much easier to attend. But it was fascinating to me to be sitting in these panels and hearing these, authors speak about, various subjects that they were, sharing their tips and tricks and whatever. And you can hear this information a lot. Like we all hear, write what you know, and, these are the steps for plotting and whatever. But it takes one person saying it the right way at the right time, and this light bulb just goes off in your head. You're like, I get it now. I understand what that means, and it connects. And then it's a very kind of electric experience being in an environment like that, surrounded by other people who live it, breathe it, get it, know it, and it's less polarizing too. It's like finally I'm around people who understand me.
Well, you went from wanting to be a writer to writing to putting the work out there, and now you are a published writer. Your book, Stiletto Sisterhood, is now being published by Wattpad Books, and it is coming out in when?
April 12th. which is
April
fast
12th.
approaching.
I know it's in 12 days, almost 2 weeks away.
Yeah, I can't believe it. I remember when they reached out to me in October of 2020, letting me know that they wanted to purchase the book and move forward with publishing it. And it's crazy to think how fast that time blitzes by, especially amidst the pandemic. Like, this book was not an easy feat given the parameters of logistics and timing. It's kind of funny because this book like really put me through it in so many different ways. One being my life started to reflect the story in a lot of ways. So one of the principal characters goes through a prolific breakup with her fiance. The other one loses her job, like at one point or another in the story. And I was just like, oh, I'm now going through a horrible breakup where I'm absolutely devastated, and I have to now plot this brand new story, because what I'd written for Wattpad, like, this book was originally written and is available on Wattpad's platform, but I wrote it in a way that wasn't meant for traditional publishing. It was a very experimental story for me. So this was me just having fun creating something that I really wanted to read, but written specifically with Wattpad readers in mind. So when they purchased the book and they said, okay, we want to publish this, but we really got a lot of work to do to make this into a published version, I was like, yeah, I know. So it was
Yeah, the
almost
whole
like a
editing
page one
process.
rewrite. Yeah, it was almost a page one rewrite. And it's so hard taking old material and trying to figure out what stays, what goes, and how to breathe new life in between all that. Now I'm going through a devastating breakup, so that's not helping. And then the pandemic was just ballooning my hours at my former job. I was pushing 75-hour weeks. I was not sleeping. And now I'm dealing with the frustration of trying to create a first draft in, I don't know, 2 months. So I felt like I was going insane. I would, like, some weekends I actually would go to sleep like, I can't do it. I'm gonna have to cancel this contract and I'm terrible. It was such an ordeal. But then, I wake up the next day and I was like, no, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. And you just gotta like push through every single hurdle. But this was the first time I was writing under so many different constraints and now a deadline on top of that. So it was an interesting journey.
Yeah, I don't think people really really appreciate the stress of deadlines and how your thinking changes when it's now become real and you have to deliver.
Yeah, because I've written many stories over the course of time, and I've been always very good about finishing what I write. But when you're writing for yourself and you're writing to your own timeline, if life throws you a curve, you can kind of adapt to it because you're writing for yourself. You're not beholden to anyone else. But once the book is a product and that product has been sold and you are now under contract, it's a business relationship, and they can offer some flexibility in some areas, but ultimately it's a job and you need to get it done. And it doesn't matter if you're working 75 hours a week and you're raising 2 kids, like, you have to get it done. So it was a really challenging period. I'm proud that I got through it. Um, I definitely hope that the next volley is a lot kinder and a lot smoother. I can't imagine it would be anything close to that, but it's made for an interesting debut for sure.
Well, you recently did an unboxing video. Was it a video? No, is it a video or pictures? You did an unboxing. You have some books in your hand.
I do actually have it right here.
Ah, okay. Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
good.
it's still, I'm still taking it in. Like,
Show it again.
you know what? It's so funny because of
Let's see it.
everything I
Let's
went
see
through
it.
with this book, because of everything I went through writing this and putting this together. Like, this cover, this was the original concept that they sent me. And I was like, I love this. Like, this is exactly what I had in mind. The color, the look, the feel. I got very lucky that way because I know, like, again, as an author, it's a product. I've sold it. The publishers really dictate what it's going to look like. you get a little bit of, again, you get a little bit of input and you get a little bit of say, but the brand gets to decide what the cover is going to look like, how the book's going to be laid out. So I'm very happy that what's come out is something that I actually do think is quite beautiful and is very similar to what I had in mind with it. It did take me a moment when the box of books arrived, because when it initially showed up at my door, I was like, oh, the bane of my existence is here.
Not even joy, but the bane of my existence.
Because I felt like every time I worked on this book, it was just putting me through no end of grief, like, you know, like a third child. So it took me a minute. I'm like, you're just going to sit in the corner until I'm ready for you. But yeah, I'm very, very happy with the book and how it's all come together. It's beautiful.
How did it feel to finally hold it in your hands?
Again, I still feel like I'm still taking it in. This has been such a long road in many respects. I was surprised that I didn't cry, but I think, again, it's because I've just been through so much this year that it's going to take a lot to make me cry at this point. I've shed so many tears over this book already, good and bad. So, yeah, I was actually surprised that that didn't happen. But it definitely, like, when I did open the box and I opened the books, I felt like that little pang, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm not totally jaded right now. Like, this is actually, there's still love here. There's still good here. Like, I am actually very happy. But I think the hardest thing for me has been surrendering perfectionism, because, again, with the whole deadline process, every time I was working on the book, I just wanted to hold on to it that much longer to really make sure, like, did I get this where I want it to be? Have I done enough? And I'm sure if I were to read through this, I'm going to hit points where I'm like, oh, I didn't quite do enough here. Whereas when it's yours and in your hands without any issue, you can work. Like, I always say, a book's never perfect. It's just good enough. It just reaches a point where you just have to accept you've done everything that you can and release it into the world. So that's something that I'm still trying to work on within myself, is accepting that art is never truly done. You can tinker with it forever. You just have to trust that you've done enough and be proud of what you've done.
Okay, well, let's meet the book. Can you hold it up again? Okay, Stiletto Sisterhood. When they first met, best friends Priya, Isabel, Caitlin, Eshe, is it Eshe, and Shane swore a vow: chase dreams, not drama. Now, years later, Priya Seth is determined to win the coveted one-year mentorship with her idol at New York's hottest law firm. Her rival, last night's hookup, Hadrian Marek. Despite having a privileged upper hand, Hadrian is willing to form an alliance. Priya's only condition? No sex.
Yeah.
Isabel Morgan is planning the perfect wedding, fighting to get the promotion she deserves, and caring for her dependent father. But when a video of her cheating fiancé goes viral, her world comes crashing down until she gets an offer that merges her passion for news and activism. The caveat? Long hours and travel away from her father. As these young women discover that achieving dreams is often erratic and drama is as inevitable as adulting, the foundation of their friendship begins to crack, putting their sisterhood to the test.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I loved when I first wrote this book and these characters. I really did love them so much. Like, I was so terrified, actually, when I first started writing Stiletto Sisterhood, because it was the first time that I was exploring a book all about girls, like a girl group, a diverse girl group that was actually really reflective of my core friends, which was really important to me. Because, you know, diversity and the push for own voices has been a huge movement as of, I'd say, the last 4 years. It's really, really, like, picked up steam and momentum and become a focal point within the writing community, specifically YA, which is where I gained so much perspective and so much information. Like, the YA community on Twitter, the amount of work and effort that they were doing online, especially from Black women, was just profound and truly groundbreaking for me, especially because it really forced me to look at myself and reflect within myself and recognize that I had grown up with so many internal biases, even towards myself being Black biracial, that I never realized that by being immersed in a world and within media that was so predominantly white based, that it was really reflecting in my own craft, in the sense that anything that was contemporary, all of my leads were white, and then I would kind of pull in diversity on the fringe with supporting characters. But if I wrote fantasy, for some reason my subconscious was like, oh, it's fantasy, I can do whatever I want, and all of a sudden my cast was diverse. And I never noticed that I was subconsciously doing this, as if to say, like, part of me was just being filtered this belief that I didn't belong in a world that was contemporary to be the main character in a story. So I'd never really felt grounded to explore that, and I didn't even realize that I was doing that until all this conversation was coming out, and I was like, oh my God, like, I've got a lot of reflecting here to do, and evaluating my sense of self and self-worth, and feeling safe and confident to bring my voice into a contemporary space. So Stiletto Sisterhood, in a lot of ways, was me exploring myself and giving myself permission to be on the page. Like, Isabel's character is probably the one that is closest to me in terms of background. But I definitely pull parts of me into all the girls. Like with Isabel and her dependent father, my mom had a critical illness that forced me to have to, like, abandon university and get a corporate job and start supporting the family, kind of like pulling myself away from my journey and my growth, and having to take on so much more at a younger age than I should have. And then Priya, I'd say, is kind of the person that I've started to evolve into, where she's really got this confidence and this unapologetic sense of self, but she's very ambitious and she makes no apologies for that. So it's really nice to kind of had these girls give me that space to explore these areas of where I've been and who I'm evolving into.
Yeah, people really don't seem to understand the depth of what diversity really means, and
Absolutely.
the different perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
And you, as being biracial, you're straddling two different cultures, and you have to try to figure out where you belong.
Well,
How
especially
important?
like when I was a kid, like I remember the first time I ever encountered racism as a child. I was about 6, and me and my sister, we were playing with these kids. We'd gone, I think, out to Hamilton, so just like further out on the fringes of like the core city in Toronto. And we were playing with these, these kids in the street, and the kids were like, hey, why don't you guys all come back to our place? And there were these 2 girls that had come with us. We were like best friends with them, and there were these 2 white girls, me and my sister, and then the kids that we'd found that were playing that lived in this neighborhood. So we all go running back, and me and my sister were like at the tail end of the group, and everybody's running up the porch steps, and they go through the door, and the mom is there, and she sees me and my sister, and she immediately slams a screen door in our faces, and she says, I don't let mutts into my home. And I didn't understand what that meant, but I knew it wasn't good. And I remember feeling very confused, but I was hurt by the fact that I was literally being shut out and literally being told I couldn't play with kids for reasons I couldn't understand. So then, we told my mom, and my mom was furious and dealt with the woman, but that was branded. Like, I can see, and actually incorporated that story into Stiletto Sisterhood, because it was such a core memory for me. And I can see the woman, the color of her dress, the brick on the wall. I remember what the weather was like such a simple, small, not simple, but it made such an impact that it followed me throughout the rest of my life, to the point where anytime somebody called me a mutt, my hackles would raise. And I know other mixed and biracial people who actually call themselves that, and they're fine with it. But me personally, it really profoundly bothers me. But then conversely, on the other side of the fence, so my stepfather was also Black. Like my biological father's Black, but I didn't know him. My mom remarried to another Black man, and he was very religious. So he wanted us all to go to like his church with him, and it was predominantly a Black community church. And I remember going there with my sister. We were probably about 10 at the time. And we were in the bathroom and we were literally told by a group of Black girls, you don't belong here. So I kind of internalized I didn't belong anywhere. The white people didn't want me. The Black people didn't want me. So I just kind of was like, okay, I'm Canadian. I don't belong anywhere. I'm me. I don't know where I fit. So I think having the ability to finally feel like I could claim that part of myself and take ownership of that part of myself has been truly profound. And finally feeling confident enough to explore it in all areas of not just my day-to-day, but my writing has really, I think, healed a lot of that childhood trauma for me too.
Yeah, there's a lot of people saying write what you know, but they don't. they this is truly what it means. It's not just about writing about the job that you have, but
Mm-hmm.
taking some of your own experiences and using the perspective that you've gained
Mm-hmm.
to actually inform other characters.
Yeah.
Right. So your characters are very much based on people in your life, or like an amalgam. What's one of your favorite characters?
Oh, I'd have to say Shane. I adore Shane. If I could pick one to pull from the page and like make her my real life bestie, absolutely Shane. She's so badass. Definitely has the most confidence of all the girls, but at the same time, absolute softie. She's very similar to me in the sense that she will go to war for her girls without question. You do not mess with the sisterhood if Shane's around because she will deck you, literally or figuratively. But she's just a fantastic character. Like every time she's on the page, I just have so much fun with her.
Well, it sounds like this will make a brilliant movie. So I hope Wattpad Studios is already taking a look at it.
Or a Netflix series. Put that out into the universe.
Yes,
With the reboot of Sex in the City, why not? Let's give some new perspective there.
Yeah, it's not all about shoes, but is all about real people for once.
Yeah, yeah. And it's what was also important to me with this particular book as well is two things that I wanted to accomplish, and what reason why I started writing this story is I was craving books that celebrated female friendships, strong female friendships, as well as ambitious women who put their goals first. Like as women, we're really everything we consume is about finding the guy, finding the guy, finding the guy, finding the guy. And in the romance genre in particular, a lot of very ambitious women would be like giving up their careers and all these other things for the sake of love, which is a beautiful idea. But it's like, well, why does it have to be one or the other? They not have both? Or better yet, why can we not find ourselves first as women and then let love find us when we're ready for it, rather than feeling this burning need to pursue it simply because we've got this, societal ticking clock overhead, which says if you're not married by 25, you're failing. If you're not a mom by 30, you're failing. Like I fell into that trap. And I'm now divorced and I have two children that I'm raising by my own. Luckily, my ex-husband and I have a fantastic relationship together. We're amazing co-parents. My best friend always says you are like the poster children for divorce done right, because we're just so collaborative and we're so supportive, and I'm truly blessed there. He's an amazing father and still an amazing supportive figure in my life. But I rushed things there simply because I felt I'm 21. I should be working towards this life, this ideal, and oh, here's this amazing guy. We're best friends. This is what it's supposed to be. And then we get married and I didn't know myself. I didn't have time to know myself.
Especially getting married that young.
Yeah. Like, I was 22 when I was pregnant with my daughter. So it was like, I didn't really truly know who I was. And he truly didn't even know who he was. And he's 7 years older than me, but like he had his own baggage and his own trauma. And we were two really great people at the wrong time, I think, in our lives to have taken on something like that. But we still fought to try to make it work for 12 years. And ultimately I decided, you know what? It's best that we end the relationship and focus on being better parents rather than trying to force something that would fit. But when I was reflecting on healing from all that, I was like, yeah, it's there's all this pressure on you all the time as young women, that if you don't hit these targets and milestones, you're failing. And I wanted to put something out there that was going to create a better message for my daughter, which is, you know, focus on you, grow you, pursue the things that matter to you, and let love come to you when it's meant to come to you. It doesn't have to be the focus for you. And you know, in addition to that, my other frustrating thing that I've seen a lot when it comes to ambitious, powerful women portrayed in books or in shows is they're always pitted against each other. They're always at each other's throats. They're like in this hot, intense competition because they want to, you know, be better than the other. And it's always, almost always, you know, the guy in the middle. They're after the same guy, so we've got to tear each other down. And you know, so I wanted to kind of create something that was really focused on sisterhood and pursuing your goals and the things that matter, and finding yourself and being true to that journey.
Well, I think all Wattpad writers should take a good note of that. This is the book that you really want to see. The book where more sisterhood is praised rather than that competition between women. That's a good point to take us out. Thank you so much for joining us. I could go on talking to you for an hour, but we do have limited time. So,
of course. Thank you so much for having me. This has been fantastic.
Well, yes, the sisterhood. Sorry, the Stiletto Sisterhood is available for pre-order on Amazon and on Wattpad Books. And you can go and find out. Is it in hardcover and a softcover, or is it just softcover?
Just softcover, but who knows?
Okay. Well, we're looking forward to seeing it, and looking forward to actually finally having a copy in my hands where I can hold. Join us for the next panel on April 10th, where we discuss the Watty experience, past winners, and you are a past winner for Watty.
Yeah,
this is what year?
Stiletto Sisterhood, 2016.
All right. Maybe we should have you back and we can continue the discussion.
Hey, that would be fantastic.
For the Watty experience, we're going to be talking to past winners and some long and short listers who will give you their insight and what they learned with their Watty experience. It's 2 p.m. Eastern Time on April 9th. You can find details in our Wattpad profile or the website at WritersConnX. Remember, we have more of these Wattpad writer interviews going on every week here on Instagram Live, so keep an eye out for our schedule and posts. Once again, thank you to Fallon for joining us.
Thank you.
You can find Fallon on social media at Fallon Demornay.
Yep.
Okay, links are going to be in the description. Say bye, Fallon.
Bye. Thank you everyone for having me.
Yeah. For WritersConnX, I was and I still am Rodney V. Smith, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.